Vitriolic political talk has become a staple of American airwaves in the last few decades, but now, after the shooting of Congresswoman Giffords, America is re-examining its relationship with the spectacle of talk radio, something that I take part in. The third most powerful Democrat in the House of Representatives, Congressman Jim Clyburn, said earlier this week, "Free speech is as free speech does. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, call it free speech, and some of what I hear and is being called free speech is worse than that," end quote. Although not one single serious legislative proposal has been put forward in decades to reinstate the Fairness Doctrine, a law that required broadcasters to, quote, operate in the public interest by adequately informing citizens of important news, end quote, it's been turned into a huge and hysterical straw man by people like Republican Congressman Mike Pence and Greg Walden to raise money for their campaigns so they can do battle against liberals trying to censor Rush Limbaugh. Seriously. No serious politician or broadcaster has ever suggested that. But the monopoly of right-wing views on talk radio does raise some interesting questions. Is it time to use the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up big radio companies like Clear Channel, now owned in part by Mitt Romney's old company, Bain Financial? Or is it even time to bring in something like Pence's fantasy boogeyman, an activist FCC that will require stations to carry some progressive programming if they're mostly programmed with right, or conservative if they're mostly programmed with left-wing talk? With us to debate this is Seton Motley, president of lessgovernment.org, and Mark Sawyer, professor of political science at UCLA. Thank you both. Mark, first to you, the argument in favor of regulating the airwaves more vigorously or bringing in something like a fairness doctrine.
Well, first of all, the airwaves are a public domain, and it's important that we maintain our public domains in a way that allows for a range of different views to be expressed, and in particular informs and elevates our political debate such that our public airways contribute to the public interest. And it's hard to say that people being filled with, right-wing hate talk radio 24/7 as they turn on their radio, only getting one point of view, getting a very limited set of facts even to base that point of view on, so oftentimes outright lies, is really helping and operating in the public interest. And so we need something to help that. I mean, we have citizens in America now who are just sequestered off into their own points of view between that kind of radio and what you get on the internet. People never have to hear from any other side.
So, Seton, we're balkanizing America here. How can this be a good thing?
The other side of that coin is Americans are free to choose the news and information they want to choose. The public interest is best served.
Well, actually, not true.
The public interest is best served.
No, just simply not true.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not true.
They choose Rush Limbaugh. They don't choose.
There are hundreds of communities in this country where there is no progressive talk radio available at all.
That's because there's no audience for it.
There are several major cities.
That's because there's no audience for it.
Actually, it does quite well in those cities where it's located.
And someone bought up what was a progressive FM talk station and put 80s rock music on it. The station was vibrant. It was doing well. People listened. It was in a community that supported that kind of thing.
That's the free market, man. That's the free market. That's the free market.
It's not the free market.
Sure it is.
For example, my network, when I was with
if a radio station could make money,
station in Miami, Florida, they were pulling 4 shares. They pulled us, replaced us with sports. They were pulling 1.5 shares.
That's their business.
They were able to make more money with a 1.5 share doing sports because they owned the company that owned the syndication that sold the sports.
That's business.
That's vertical integration. That's monopoly.
That's business. It's not vertical. What monopoly? Would you stop with the monopoly?
That is the exact same
thing. What are you, Teddy Roosevelt?
What are you,
Teddy Roosevelt?
And Congress intervened.
It's not 1920 anymore.
The studios can't own the theaters.
It's not.
So there aren't cartels.
No, there aren't cartels.
Radio is a cartel. It's controlled by a small number.
In 1987, when they rescinded the Fairness Doctrine, there were 100 talk radio stations. Now there are more than 2,000, and we didn't get to a cartel overnight. It took 20 years of people going, I'd rather listen to this than that.
Well, a lot of it had to do with the fact that FM came along and it sounded better, and all the music moved to FM, and so there was this vast empty area.
on the AM dial, they could have progressive. They could have Air America stunk on ice, and it went away.
Air America as a network was not well run. I'll tell you that.
Well, it was also not well staffed.
But I can also tell you,
you're one of the exceptions that proves the rule that you're the only liberal talk host that gets an audience. Equine Ed Schultz doesn't get an audience. Al Franken didn't get an audience.
Al Franken actually pulled a pretty good audience. Ed Schultz has a good audience. Stephanie Miller has a good audience. Mike Malloy has a good. There is an A-list in progressive talk radio, just like there is in conservative talk radio.
But the numbers.
But the fact
Who's
of the matter
the number
is
one
that,
conservative talk host? I mean, the liberal talk host.
I am.
Okay, and what number are you in the overall pantheon of talk radio hosts?
10.
Exactly.
But
America likes
of
A,
the
they
9
don't
above
like
me,
B.
I would say probably 3 of them aren't even political. But
well, I know, like Laura Schlesinger and that kind of thing.
Dr. Joyce.
But what I'm saying is, people choose conservative talk radio much more frequently than they do liberal talk radio. I want to leave it to the people to decide what the public interest is.
Again, my point.
No, it's not.
There are large chunks of America where it's simply not available.
I know a lot of people who run radio stations, and they say,
Rush Limbaugh in ratings in cities. I beat Sean Hannity.
Clear channel controls what we see. Or here on the airwaves.
If you want, look, why don't you get together with some liberal friends, start a liberal network like Air America, and see if you can do any better than Air America.
Let me throw something into both of you here.
I'm sorry, but professors aren't paid enough to have millions of dollars to finance the development.
If you have a good idea, you can raise the money.
Market seat,
if you have a good idea, you can raise the money.
See, I don't believe that myth either. But here, let me toss something out here to both of you. What if we just totally defunded NPR?
I'd love it.
And said, okay, you're on your own, you're a private corporation,
yes,
go out and sell stock and do your best, and let them be the new liberal talk network.
Sure.
Or said,
but
sorry,
NPR is liberal.
Yes, it is.
No, what if we let
Bill Moyers, 2 words, Bill Moyers.
He's not even on here. Or what if we said to NPR, sorry, you can't run programs like Talk of the Nation anymore. You can't compete with talk radio. You have to do nothing but news, and we're going to fully fund you by the government.
No,
but you have to play the role of BBC.
I pick A. I don't want the government funding agitprop propaganda. It's very Soviet Union. I don't want the government in the news business.
So you think that the BBC
if you want to turn
the CBC bottle,
right. If you want a watchdog if you want to turn a watchdog into a lapdog, have the government buy the dog food.
Well, that's certainly not what has happened. The BBC arguably has brought down a couple of governments.
Yeah, conservative ones.
Yeah, and NPR is a very neutral.
NPR is neutral.
NPR is a liberal station. It's absolute nonsense.
Okay.
NPR presents facts. And it's funny, facts have now become liberal ideas.
No,
conservatives are so untethered from facts.
No, liberals never let facts get in the way of a good beating.
Well, actually, Mark, my concern about NPR is that back when they were fully funded by the government, they did that expose on Archer's Daniel Midland, which led to the largest fine in the history of the food industry. I think it was a $300 million fine, just busted ADM open, and for price fixing. And then Reagan cut the funding for NPR. And when that funding got cut, they started having to go hat in hand to corporations, and they don't do that kind of investigative reporting anymore. Doesn't that concern you, Mark?
Yeah, that concerns me, and that's why we should fully fund NPR, a station that presents facts and operates in the public interest.
Yeah, my point.
That's
either all or nothing. I think this hybrid kind of happens.
So it'll operate in the government interest instead.
Well, if the government interest is the public interest, isn't that a good thing?
No, but it's not. It's in the government interest.
The government is us, Seton. This is a democracy.
The government
George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin.
Barack
it's about
Obama's
us.
government is operating in direct opposition to the public interest again and again and again. Health care, 9 months, didn't want it, he did it anyway.
80% of Americans want America to have a national health care system.
No, they don't. That's a fraudulent poll.
Okay.
And kids who don't have coverage because they have diabetes, it's against their interest, right, to have this health care bill.
Yeah. Buy a policy that covers it.
Guys,
it's a free market.
We have to wrap it up here. But Mark Sawyer, excellent points. Seton Motley.
Excellent points.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Good to see you,
coming
man.
up. Thanks, Mark, thanks a lot for joining us.
Okay.